Well, LifeBlood, this is George G, and the time is right. Welcome to today's guest, strong and powerful Manisha Thakor. Manisha, are you ready to do this?
I am George.
All right, let's go. Manisha is a CFA, a CFP, and an MBA. She's the founder of the financial wellness consultancy Money Zen. She's an author, speaker, and consultant. Her newest book is Money Zen: Escape the Cult of Never Enough and Reclaim Your Life. Manisha, excited to have you on. Tell us a little about your personal life, some more about your work, and what motivated you to put pen to paper for the new book.
Sure. I am 53, divorced, childless. It's not as bleak as it sounds. I'm also the super proud auntie to the some of the three cutest little people on the earth. And one of the things that I found being in my 50s is that it's been nice to have the flexibility to be able to help out with my parents who are in their early 80s. As so many of us in midlife, I think, are finding out, um, dealing with elder care at the same time as raising children is an incredibly difficult situation to be in. So I feel very grateful to be able to handle both of those. And as a 50th birthday present to myself, I bought a lake house in rural Maine. And so I split my time between Portland, Oregon, and living about 5 feet from an unbelievable lake in rural Maine, where I get to paddleboard and kayak. So that's a little bit about my personal life. And because I'm middle aged, sort of, I've already forgotten the second question, George.
Just some more about your work.
There may be a reason I forgot about that. It could have been deliberate, Freudian.
Who knows?
Um, so I am starting the third chapter of my career. I spent the first 15 years out of business school. I did my MBA at Harvard, which tends to be kind of a feeder into the investment world, at least back then. It was kind of a feeder into the investment banking, investment, anything sort of world. And I moved ultimately into the investment management world, and I was a buy side equity analyst and then portfolio manager for corporations, endowments, foundations, and then through a circuitous turn of events, ended up writing two personal finance books for young women in their 20s and 30s with a girlfriend of mine from business school. Because shockingly, they don't teach personal finance at Harvard Business School. They teach corporate finance, but not personal finance. And our super smart girlfriends were asking us the same questions. So I thought, well, let's write a book about it. And then that got me interested in helping individuals. So I got my CFP and I moved over onto the wealth advisory side. And then I did that for the second chapter of my career. And then as I moved into my 50s, for a variety of different reasons, I switched gears again, and kind of retired from the corporate side of the world. And now I split my time between sitting on corporate nonprofit national boards and then writing and doing keynote speaking and consulting.
I love it. And the newest book, what was the motivation there?
Ooh, so they say, sometimes you write books to teach, which is what the first two books were. They were data dumps from my head to teach others. This book was to teach myself because I came to realize that I had basically spent almost my entire adult life living on a 24/7 hamster wheel of hustle culture. And no matter how much money I earned, how many accomplishments I achieved, how much, um, you know, accolades I received, it was just never enough. And I felt like I was never enough. There was like nothing I could do that would fill up, as the Buddhist would say, the hungry ghost. And it was literally as if I had been sucked into this cult of never enough. And it was exhausting. And I did not want to spend the rest of my life on this planet chasing after this. And so I decided I wanted to go on an explorative journey to figure out how I ended up like this. And if anybody else was having the same problem, turned out the answer was yes, lots of people. And then B, how do we get ourselves out of it? And so I put together a book proposal, and it turned out that folks at HarperCollins were like, yep, lots of people interested in this. And so I've spent the last 2 years researching, writing, and the book comes out in August
Oh, I love
of
it.
2023.
I don't love the fact that so many of us are stuck on that hamster wheel. I do love that you think about it, or you described it as a cult, because it kind of is, right?
Yeah.
Like when you think about cults, you think about whatever. There's tons of them from the outside looking in. They're like, how could anybody ever get into a cult? That's crazy. But we're all sort of stuck there.
Yeah. Well, we live in a society that tends to tell us that the answer for almost any ailment is more.
Hmm.
Um, you're not feeling successful enough, work harder. You're not feeling good enough about yourself physically. Go to the gym and work harder. Diet more. Try and buy more clothes. You aren't feeling good about your social life, make more friends, have more hobbies. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is in your life, the answer seems to be more. And when it comes to work, it can be particularly dangerous because work is an area where, by the very nature of it's it's never ending. And basically, what's happened to so many of us is we've now attached our identities to work. And many of us, I mean, for me, this was the real turning point, was when I realized I had come to identify my self-worth with my net worth. I literally viewed myself as a number, as my income, as my net worth, not as any of the other characteristics of myself as a human, which is horrifying.
That is horrifying, but and but should we just not do that at all? Or are there healthier ways to measuring sticks?
Yeah. So, what I came to realize is that there are a range of factors that cause so many of us to fall into this way of thinking. And the first, interestingly enough, is so many high performance individuals across any industry, not just finance, but there are a lot of us in finance, are driven by what psychologists will often call small t traumas, things that happened to us before age 25 when our brains were not yet fully formed, um, that haunt us still, oftentimes well into our 40s, sometimes even longer, and just drive us to show people. And in my case, I am mixed race. I'm half Indian, and I grew up in a small town in Indiana. And I was chubby, and I had Coke bottle glasses, and I had a skin condition called psoriasis. And I was like, so not the cool girl. And I got picked on so much so that in sixth grade, like the kids um, in the lunchroom would spread their trays apart. It was like Mean Girls. So there was nowhere for me to sit down. And I used to literally leave school at lunch, and my parents worked, and so I didn't have a latchkey, because my mom was a teacher. So she'd get home by the time I was there. And I sat under the picnic table every day
Oh no.
um, for a year because I couldn't take the bullying. And that's what drove me for years, well into adulthood. But then there were other factors, right? Because you then culturally we get rewarded for work, and as the more I got promoted, she's the youngest one to lead this, she's the youngest one to get promoted to that, get accolades. And then as I got bigger and bigger raises, I could start buying stuff. And oh, does society like to reward you for, look, she's wearing those shoes with the red bottoms. Do you know how much those cost? And then, society rewards you. And then, so there are these different factors that come together. And I found that there were a variety for personal small t trauma, cultural, societal, and even evolutionary biological factors, where when our fight or flight kicks in, which kind of circles back to society telling us, for survival, you need more, which in, hunter gatherer days, when you literally needed more food whenever it came around, you needed more, as much of it as you could to survive because you didn't know what was coming. Well, now we live in a land of plenty, so we don't constantly need more. But our neo, our amygdala doesn't know that. So when you stir all that up together, that's how we get in the cult of never enough. And so then the question and the answer becomes, how do we get out?
Right.
And so that's really where I came to find peace, and where I want to spend this third chapter of my life, and helping people find peace is by spreading the message of how we get out and reclaim our lives.
Well, I am somebody who loves a framework or a process. Could you share a little bit?
Absolutely. So what we want to do is swap the equation self-worth equals net worth, or whatever kind of toxic relationship you have in your mind with money, work, success, accomplishments, and instead use a framework that I call financial health plus emotional wealth. And with financial health, the idea is achieving competence, achieving finding your enough. And this is different for each person, and this is where financial advisors and the wealth management industry can be incredibly powerful. And the shift towards financial life planning, towards the inclusion of financial therapists in the process, I'm loving seeing this, because this helps people identify what is the point at which you have found your enough. And that number is often very different than what many people think it is, because many of us have a lot of things in our life that I call leaky money spots, things that we have that aren't bringing us a lot of joy. And when we can get rid of those money leaks, our enough is often a lot smaller than we think it is. And therefore, we can let go of these activities that are draining us. And then we can invest that time into our emotional wealth. And what I find fascinating, to just kind of sum this up, is many of us have heard of the study that says any income you earn over $75,000 a year doesn't make you happy. And most of us are like, okay, that is the stupidest study. That number, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it turns out that study is wrong, but it's not wrong because the number is too low. It's wrong because any increase over that number does not make you happy unless you have a baseline of emotional well-being. If you just keep earning more money and you soar past financial health, but you got no emotional wealth, it's not going to make you happier. And so that's why this formula of financial health plus emotional wealth is the answer to escaping that cult of never enough and finding this place of Money Zen. And so that's the piece that I missed when I was trapped in the 24/7 hamster wheel of hustle culture, and how I escaped and how I hope to help other people escape in this third chapter of my life.
That makes a ton of sense. I really appreciate that. So we need to know what our enough is,
Mhm.
and that's not easily found. It's by no means impossible, but it requires work, and I'm sure that you walk through how to arrive at that number in the book. And the same thing is true of emotional wealth, because if I'm just pursuing happiness and it's going to keep ratcheting up and up and up, which is the whole point. So I need to be able to figure out what my baseline is of this emotional wealth.
Well, and what's so interesting, George, is oftentimes emotional wealth comes from, it's rooted so often in less, and often in achieving less. And when I say achieving less, most people have, especially ambitious type A's that get caught in the cult of never enough, have a really visceral negative reaction to that. But generally, emotional wealth is rooted in less obligations, less packed of a calendar, less money going out, because you're having there's so many different ways in which we are packing our lives full that are costing us extra money to help keep going because we are so stressed, miserable, and unhappy, or just time starved. And so, well, we don't have time today to walk through the various steps to identify what is the level, what is the number for financial health, which again, I cannot emphasize enough that the financial services industry, with its new emphasis in many places on financial life planning, is really doing the work, the cutting edge work on that, and identifying what brings emotional wealth. I find that emotional wealth most often comes the way it did for me, was peeling away things and identifying simplicity and small joys, and ending up with financial independence as a result of discovering my emotional wealth came from things rooted in simplicity and small joys, and certainly indulgences. I now have a cabin in Maine. It's not like I'm living like a monk,
Right.
but it's yeah, I'd say my life is now characterized by simplicity, small joys, and financial independence, as opposed to misery, exhaustion, and overwhelm.
Seems like a good trade-off. Now, these this wisdom, this ability to to actually do the things, a lot of the time it's through personal experience. It's through
Yeah.
making mistakes. You're obviously hoping that you'll help people to figure this out without having to make the same mistakes.
I wrote this book primarily for individuals in their 40s and 50s who have face planted multiple times like me. So when I said divorced and no kids, um, all of that involved a fair amount of face planting. And so the book is remarkably candid, remarkably candid. If I still worked for in the corporate environment, I would not have been as raw. There are stories I share in there that I would never have been able to share if I didn't work for myself now. I also interview a wide range of women. I did so using pseudonyms at all of their requests so that they too could be incredibly candid. And so it is a book that shares mistakes. Um, so it is not about how to avoid the mistakes. It is about how to learn from them, how to pick yourself up from them. And then for people in their 20s and 30s, my hope is that it will be a cautionary tale when you start seeing some of those things creep into your own life, that perhaps you may remember some of the stories in the book. And the book is half story, half research. And the reason I wanted it to be half story is that's how we learn. We remember story, but I also wanted it to be deeply rooted in research, because story without research sometimes can feel um, uh, as if it's lacking an intellectual foundation and a framework. So throughout the book, there are a wide range of interdisciplinary, top-notch experts who share their academic research and cutting-edge published studies. And so it's full of story, facts, and figures.
I love it. We want to strike the right balance between being just to your point, just a lovely story, and also way too clinical or academic, where it's just about the numbers. So I appreciate that, and I'm grateful that you are in a place that you are able to share those face plants and the raw, messy details and stories that you've gone through, because I think that that's really how we identify. You know, if you held yourself out to be this person who's perfect and never made any mistakes and everything's gone just great, then you probably wouldn't resonate and probably wouldn't be as effective as it is. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh no, like there are plenty of mistakes in there.
I love it. And Manisha, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? Where can they get their copy of Money Zen, Escape the Cult of Never Enough, and Reclaim Your Life?
So Money Zen is available in all the usual suspect places online. Prior to August 8th, if you're listening to the podcast, then it is available for pre-order. And I cannot thank you enough if you pre-order it. That's always super helpful. And you get some fun free bonuses if you do that. And you can go to moneyzenbook.com to get those pre-order bonuses. And after August 8th, you can find me and all my social links and everything that I'm up to at moneyzen.com.
Excellent. Well, if you enjoyed as much as I did, show Manisha your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Pick up your copy of Money Zen, Escape the Cult of Never Enough, and Reclaim Your Life wherever you buy your books. You can also go to moneyzenbook.com and pre-order your copy and take advantage of the extras that Manisha was talking about, and then find and learn all things Manisha at moneyzen.com. Thanks again, Manisha.
Thanks, George.
And until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.